I kind of telegraphed this next question going into the break, but it's real and legitimate. And I will be the first to admit I've used the expression big lie, I think, twice already this hour. Do we shorthand what happened on 1/6 because we in the news media always need phraseology? We need a quip, a shorthand appellation for things. By calling it the big lie, would we be better served with some variation of the violent insurrection that was intended to reverse a democratic election?
Back when September 11, 2001 befell all of us, we had a lot of language, a lot of big flashy graphics and banners in red, white, and blue. Attack on America. That's what this was. And that's what it still is. When you take a sledgehammer to the pillars of the Constitution, when you deny the power of we, the people, to choose our own government by trying to discard thousands, if not millions of votes, when you undermine faith in the structure in a country that's held together by faith, by documents, much more than land or ethnicity, that's an attack. I don't have any objection to the language of the big lie, but I think this has been and continues to be an ongoing attack on our democracy. And I return to this Republican Party, which has wrapped itself historically in the language of freedom, and yet attaches itself to a weak figure, subserves itself to one man in an authoritarian fashion. That is the opposite of freedom. And living in a lie is the opposite of freedom.
By the way, Baratunde, to your very point, attack on America became softened jargon. We love to do that. It became the events of 9/11. A whole lot of commercials right now talk about during these difficult times when they could just mention an uncontrolled pandemic for 14 months. And indeed, big lie is cheaper and easier for folks in our line of work to say than it is the violent insurrection attempt to overturn a democratic election.
I agree. And I just, when we think about people who almost literally co-signed on that attack, if we rewind to January 6th and we saw the footage and we saw the smoke and we didn't even know the death toll yet, but we knew this was horrific. And for the people whose very lives were threatened, whose vice president was almost lynched, to go in there and say this election was a sham, that's co-signing on an attack. That's aiding and abetting the enemy. That's that kind of language that we use against brown people all over the world in the history of colonialism, but are unafraid to use it when it's senators from a party that's lashed itself to whiteness or representatives doing the same. But it doesn't make it any less devastating.
Well put, and I'm glad I asked. Bill Kristol, Reuters reporting, NBC News confirming. I'm reading this to you. A growing number of anti-Trump Republicans, over 100 at last count, are signing on to a movement to create a third party if the GOP doesn't let go of its unwavering Trump loyalty. This will be about the 15th time I've asked you some version of this question, Bill. If they were given sodium pentothal and a polygraph and were waterboarded, how many elected Republicans in Washington would secretly say, Liz Cheney is actually my brand of Republican?
You know, I don't know, but I really want to emphasize a point Baratunde makes, so important. It was an attack. It is an attack. It's an ongoing attack. The attack is deepened in certain ways. The party has seen the consequences of Trump's lie from November 3rd until January 6th, has decided that's fine. Not only are we not repudiating it, we're not apologizing for it, we're embracing it going forward, and we're preparing to lay the groundwork to do it again in 2024. That's what's so serious about this moment, I think. And that's why I think, Brian, your point about, I hadn't really thought about it. The big lie, it's a little misleading. It could be misleading in the sense that you do something bad, you lie about it. If you're a kid, maybe, you try to get away with it, and then maybe you don't do it again. But that's not what the Republican Party is doing. It's not just that they're not owning up to something they did. They're laying the groundwork for continuing to do it and doing it in the future. That's Liz Cheney's point in her speech. And that's why it is, as Baratunde says, such a dangerous moment, I think, and such an important moment for Liz Cheney to speak up and Adam Kinzinger and other Republicans to say this isn't enough. How it works out, whether they can save the Republican Party, form a third party, join the Democratic Party, that's another question. But this can't be permitted. This is what the real danger is here. It's not just, the historical record needs to be set straight. That is a bit of a misreading of what's really at stake. It's an ongoing attack on our democracy and on our Constitution.